Hey class, so by now you've downloaded Revit and installed it, and now we're ready to crack it open. So you should see an icon on your desktop that looks something like this, or maybe you installed it down on your taskbar down at the bottom. Either way, there should be a logo that looks something like this. You're going to click on it, and when it's your first time logging in, it's going to pop up a message saying it wants you to log in using your Autodesk ID. So all you need to do is enter your email address and password for your student academic account, and it will open up Revit, and you should see this. So if you're coming into Revit 2024 for your first time, or whatever version you downloaded, you'll see a couple things. So this is the default interface. They call this the home interface. You can get back to it anytime by going up to here and clicking this little icon. It toggles the home view on and off. This view is the actual program. This is what you'll see when you're in a project. Right now, everything's grayed out because we don't have anything open. So we're going to go back to the home. And what you can see over here is you can open models or you can create new models. So that's a project. Or underneath that, there's families. You can open a family or create a new family. I wouldn't worry too much about that for this course. We don't create families. We might edit one or two, but you mostly don't need to worry about that yet. Down here is your recent files. If you click here, it changes what appears in the main screen. So I'm just going to keep it on recent files. And right now, I don't have any recent files because I haven't used 2024 for anything recently. What's here are the sample projects that come with Revit. It just downloaded with your file. So this is what we're going to use today when we talk about navigating. So here are all your recent models, and here's recent families that you might have worked on. So let's go ahead and click one more thing. Before we click the sample architectural project, it's good to note that once you start your homework assignments and you have projects, most likely they will be listed here in your recent projects. So you don't have to go to the open command and then go browse for it on your computer. You can do it that way, but most likely it's just going to pop up here and you'll be able to click on it and open it. All right, so with that said, let's open the architectural sample project. And it's going to take a minute and it's going to load. So this is just a typical, well, it's a project that Revit wants to highlight, saying we use the program for this, and here's a typical example of what you can expect. So we'll open this up. It will take a couple minutes, so I'm going to pause while that opens. All right, so here we are with the open project, and let's just take a minute before we do anything to explore Revit's user interface. So the thing that you're going to want to pay attention to most are there's two panels over to the side. There's one called the Properties panel, and this is context specific, meaning whatever you have clicked on and highlighted, it's going to tell you information about that thing. Right now we're looking at a sheet, and so it's telling us information about the sheet. So this will be very important when we get into using Revit. For now, it's not the most important thing for viewing. What does matter a lot more is the panel underneath the Properties panel. This is the Project Browser panel. And you can think of this kind of like your File Explorer on your computer. It lists all of the different pieces of the model. So I'm going to collapse everything. You can see there's little pluses and minuses so that you can go deeper and deeper into the structure. So I'm just going to collapse everything to its basics. But I can't get to it because of my little recording thing. Okay, here we go. So let's collapse it, and I'll just show you the basics. So at the very basics, what it's showing you is there's the views that you have in the project. And we'll talk more about views, but views are ways of looking at the 3D model that you've created. So if I click that, here's all the different views. You can see there's a lot of different types. There's floor plans, there's ceiling plans, 3D views, there's elevation sections, renderings, drafting views, walkthroughs, all of that stuff. Those are all types of views. Anytime you're looking at a model, that's a view. So we'll collapse that back down. Then there's legends, and we'll get into legends. Legends are things that you put on sheets, like, for example, to show all the different window types, that would be a legend. And we'll get into that. We'll touch a little bit on schedules as well. Schedules are like if you've ever seen a door schedule, or right here, there's a schedule. This is the sheet index for the whole set of drawings. That's a schedule. It kind of looks like an Excel spreadsheet. And then there's sheets. So these are all of the sheets in the set. Okay. And then underneath that are all the families that you have loaded into the projects. We'll talk about families in a minute. Groups we probably won't touch on, and links we probably won't touch on either. But it's possible to bring other Revit models in and link it into your model. So for example, a structural engineer might have their Revit model and you have your interior design model, and then the architect has his model. You can link them all together so that you can view them all at once in the same Revit file. All right, so that's the project browser. Before we go further, I'm going to do one thing. I don't like how these panels are arranged. So I click and hold the properties panel and I drag it to my other side. And I kind of move it and hover it over the edge until I get this like light blue box, and then you let it go and it docks it. So now I have my browser on my left side and my properties panel on the right side. That's how you will see my interface going forward from now on, because that's how I work and it's a lot easier to read. For example, when I expand the views and the sheets, you can see the list gets really long. So it's nice to have it scroll all the way up and down the side. And then same with the properties panel. The stuff in the properties panel can also get pretty long, so I keep it there. All right. So those are the two main panels. In the center is your display area, and that's where all of the working happens, is in this middle area. Then at the top, we have what's become pretty common now with Word and all the Microsoft software. Basically, most programs now have what's called the ribbon at the top. So there's a bunch of tabs with different types of commands. And if you click on the tab, here's all of the commands that are categorized under that that tab. So 90% of the time we're going to be in the architectural tab, because that's where all the architectural stuff is, like walls, doors, windows. We probably won't use structural very often. Probably never steel. Anyways, there's a bunch of them. We will maybe could use a system tab. We will definitely use the insert tab and the annotate tab. And then probably it's possible we'd use manage or collaborate. And we will often use the modify tab. So just keep that in mind. That's what's happening up at the top. This is where all the commands live. And we'll dive deeper into the commands when they become relevant. One thing to note maybe now is if you hover over a command, it gives you this little information box and it'll try to tell you what that command does. So when you're brand new and you're learning Revit, this can be very helpful. The other thing it does is it gives you the name of the command. So if you'll see right here, it says place a component is the name of the command. Not only does it give you the name of the command, but if there's a keyboard shortcut, it gives it to you in parentheses. So I can either click this button and it'll take me into the command, or you can see that CM is in parentheses. That's the keyboard shortcut to start that command. So if ever you're down here in your working window and you hit CM, it will automatically take you to that command. So that's something to keep in mind as we start to learn Revit. For a beginner course, I don't necessarily expect you to use too many commands, keyboard shortcut commands. But for sure, if you're going to work in Revit, you need to learn commands. I have coworkers that have been using Revit for 10 years and they don't use their keyboard shortcuts, and watching them work is so painful. They take twice as long to do something because they're always up here clicking around on the ribbon looking for their command. And for me, I can do stuff in 2 seconds on my keyboard. So there are some commands you're going to want to learn, and I'll go over that as we navigate, because they're just so common. You use them so often that it would be a big help if you use the keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so now that we've gone through the ribbon, the panels, the main working area, let's talk about navigation. So right now, if you look in the project browser, it always has in bold black letters, wherever you're at in the project, it has it in bold black letters. So you can see over here, it says G000 cover, and it's under the sheets. So that lets us know we're on this sheet right here. Okay. If I wanted to go to something else, like let's go to the first floor plan. If I go over to the browser and I double click, it will open up the first floor plan sheet, sheet A101. And now you can see here's the floor plan. Okay, so that's pretty simple. Same with views. If you didn't want to be on a sheet, I think I told you this before in our overview lecture, but just as a reminder, a sheet is a collection of views. So all of this stuff, if I collapse this down, you can see the views, legends, and schedules. A sheet is a collection of all these other types of elements inside of Revit. So if I click on the sheet and I click the plus sign, it shows me what view and what schedule has been placed on the sheet. And if I come over here and I click the view, you can see I can move that view around. I can move these different elements that are on the sheet. Okay, so I'm going to put those back where they were. And there you go. Okay, so that's how I navigate to a sheet. So if you want to go to a view, we can drop down the view, and let me just show you what the floor plan looks like. Let's just go to floor plan L1. So that's the view that's on that sheet, but now you can see the sheet has disappeared and the other elements around it have disappeared, and this is just the view. This is where you'll work most of the time. You can work in a view from a sheet. You can open up the view while looking at the sheet, and sometimes that's helpful. But before you assemble the sheet, you're most likely going to be working with the view. So this is what a view looks like. Let's just look at something else. Maybe let's look at a legend. So here's the door type legend. And you can see here are the different types of doors. And the cool thing about legends is legends can be put on as many pages or as many sheets as you want, whereas views can only be put on one sheet. So if you have a floor plan, you got to put it on the floor plan sheet and you can't put it on another one. But a legend, you can put on multiple sheets. So you'll want to keep that in mind. And then schedules. Let's just look at schedule. Let's look at, is there a door schedule? Okay, so here's the door legend. This shows you what the doors look like. But then if we go to the door schedule, here's a list of all the doors in the project. It gives you their name, their sizes, their materials, and all the other stuff you might need to know. And you can see it looks like an Excel spreadsheet. And again, this can be placed on a sheet. Okay. So that's navigating through the different elements in the project. Now, when you're looking at an element, you might want to know how, for instance, you zoom in and out or pan. Okay. So the first thing is you need your mouse, and hopefully you got a scrolling mouse, an optical mouse. What you're going to do to zoom is scroll in and out. So that'll zoom in and out by scrolling, right? So if I just scroll forward, it zooms in. If I scroll backwards, it zooms out. Now, the other thing you want to do is pan. So if you click down on your center button, it gives you this four-headed arrow, and you can, while holding the middle button down, you can drag it up, down, left, and right. So with a combination of zooming and panning, you can get right in on whatever you want to look at. So if I want to look at these tables, I point my mouse there. and I scroll forward and it'll zoom towards that table. If I want to go up and look somewhere else, I'll just pan to say the bathroom. And then I can always zoom out. Okay, so that's the fastest way to zoom and pan. There are also zoom and pan commands. But really you just need to do them on your mouse, because using the commands would take you forever to do a project. So I don't even want to teach you that, because it's just not worth your time. Just learn to feel comfortable with your mouse zooming and panning. All right, the next thing you'll want to know is when you open stuff up. So we were on the cover page, we were on the first floor plan, and let's maybe just go to a floor plan view. Let's go to level 4 view of the floor plan. Okay, so as I've gone around the browser in here and I've opened different views, you can see that it starts tabbing the views up at the top. So here's the view L4, so level 4 view. And if I go to this tab, you can see it's a sheet. It's A101, and you can see the symbol changes. A sheet icon looks like this, and a floor plan looks like this. Or like a view, sorry. A floor plan view looks like this little icon. So now if I click over to this tab, it'll take me back to the floor plan view. And if I click on this tab, it takes me back to the cover. So it's saving your views up here. You can also close the tabs, because you'll find when you move around in a project, if you're looking at a lot of views or a lot of sheets, the tabs start to stack up and there becomes a lot, and it taxes your machine and it could make you work slower. So you can always shut the views if you like. And now I'm back down to one tab. You just click the X on the tab. All right, something else to keep in mind. Let's look at a floor plan. Let's open up an elevation. Let's go to the south elevation. Okay, so now I'm looking at the south side of the building. And let's open a 3D view. How about this overall 3D view? There you go. So now we're looking at it in 3D. So something you'll typically want to do a lot is you'll want to see how, if you're in a floor plan and you move a window or something, you'll want to see how it affects the way the building looks on the outside, or maybe you want to see it in 3D. And instead of having to click on the different views, it would be nice to see everything all at once. So the best way to do that is what's called tiling the views. Right now the views are tabbed, is what this is called. So they've put them on tabs, but you can tile the views so that you can see them at the same time. So in order to go do that, you're going to come up to the ribbon and you're going to click the View tab. And then you will see, let me find it. I'm used to shortcuts, so I have a shortcut for everything. I don't ever use the commands. But if you come over here to the end where the category says Windows down at the bottom, you can see here are the different commands for the windows. These are considered windows here in your main working area. Each tab is a window. So we're going to do the one that says Tile Views. So before you do this command, you'll want to only have open the views you want to tile. If you had 20 views open, it's going to try to tile 20 views. So we only want these 3. So I'm just going to hit Tile Views. And now you can see here's your south elevation, here's your floor plan, and then here's the 3D model. So you can look at everything all at once. And I believe if you so when you click inside a window, it activates it. So you can see it highlights it in bold, and it makes the tab white. And you can see how these ones are not bolded and they're not white tabs. You can also see the active view by looking over here in your browser. You can see that L4 is active, but the 3D view isn't. So if you activate a view and then you can hit the tile windows command again, it'll try to shuffle things around. So let me see what happens if I click the big view. Like say I want the 3D view in the big view, I just keep clicking the big view and hit tile windows until I get the 3D view there that I want. So this is more how I want it. Okay, now the cool thing in Revit is if I'm actively looking at, let's see, we're on level 4. If I highlight something in here, like let's grab the window. Is that good? Yeah, let's say a window. You can see it colors it blue to let me know that I have it selected. You'll also notice that over here in the properties panel, it's now giving me the properties for that window. We're not going to worry about that now, but I just want you to know that that's what's happening. You'll also notice that the ribbon changed. Because I have the window selected, it brings me to the modify command, and it shows me all the commands that I might need in order to modify the window. So the ribbon tries to be smart and guess what you want. And then when I deselect the window, you'll notice it goes back to the last tab that I was using. So for now, I'm going to keep the window selected, and I want to show you, it's going to be hard to see, but if I now go over to the 3D view, you can see that it's also showing it selected in 3D. You can see how this is blue, and it shows me what's happening in the 3D view. And same thing in the elevation, though it's harder to see because the window I have selected is covered by this other piece of the window, so you're not seeing it as well. Let me grab the main window. There you go. Now do you see how it's selected everything? In all 3 views, you can see what you've selected. So this can be really helpful when you're working. And it's good to know that selecting it in one spot will show you in the other views that same selection. All right, the next thing you'll need to know is once you've selected something, you'll want to know how to unselect it. So this is the first keyboard command I'm going to teach you that I don't even know if I don't know if there's a way to deselect besides right clicking. If you right click and hit cancel, it'll deselect it. Or with something selected, you just hit escape. Escape is going to be your favorite and most used keyboard shortcut. Escape is used to deselect something. It's also used to stop a command and exit a command. So when I'm in Revit, I have my left hand is always hovering over my keyboard, ready to do shortcuts, while my other hand is on my mouse. And it defaults, my left hand just always defaults to the escape key. Because if you're having a problem or something's not working like it should, I just hit escape 3 times. It should exit me out of everything, and then I try again. Because you'll find when you're new, the commands, you're not always sure about what you're supposed to be clicking, and you'll click the wrong thing. And the best thing to do when you do something wrong is just escape out of the command and then start over. Okay, the next thing you'll want to know about navigating is in 3D. So we talked about zooming and panning for the 2-dimensional views like the section, like this elevation and this floor plan. But in 3D, there's one more element, and that is to move the model around. So there is this, what's called the view cube is over here. And if you click on the different parts of the cube, it will rotate the model for you. So for example, here I'm clicking on front. It will orient you to the front of the model. If I click this corner, it'll kind of orient you to the top left front corner. So now you can zoom in and out and pan. You can also just grab the view cube and move your mouse around. So if I click on it and hold the click and drag, you can see it turns the model. And then if you want to look at the top, you can do that. You can click the north, south, east, or west, and it'll orient you so you're looking exactly north. Let's see what else. There is, if I look at the top, there's these 2 arrows that will rotate it for you. And then you can see these arrows pointing to the fronts and the sides. Okay, so that's useful. But what I use the most is what's called the orbit command, where I don't have to go up to the box and try to drag or click on anything. I can just use this command and move the model around. So to do this, you're going to need to learn what are called modifier keys. So typically that's the Shift or Control key. Those are both called modifier keys. And in this case, what you're going to want to do is push down on your center mouse button, which would normally cause it to pan. So if I just push down on my middle scroll wheel, it's just going to pan the model up and down, left or right. But if I push down on the button and then hit the Shift key, it doesn't pan anymore, but it turns into an orbit. So, and then when I let everything go, I can scroll in and out again and pan. And then if I hit Shift and push down on my scroll wheel, I can go back to orbiting. So it feels a little weird at first, but this will become second nature the more you use Revit. I don't even think about it anymore. I just my finger automatically goes down to the Shift button, and I know that I'm going to pan. So I don't even have to think about it. But for you, it'll take a minute for you you're going to have to remember, oh, I want to orbit. What's the command? What's the shortcut? How do I do it? But this is how you'll do it. So get well acquainted with that. So the escape button, the Shift button while you're panning, those are both very crucial to your user experience. It'll be much better if you can master those commands. All right, while we're on modifier keys, let's talk about selecting. So in Revit, if I want to select something, okay, so what's happening is there is a lot going on in this example file. This is way too complicated of a file for a beginner because it's hard to tell what's happening. You can see if I grab, there's like this big facade and they've created that as a linked Revit model. So this is one of the cases where I said you can link in other models. So someone has linked in the facade into this file because I think it's too complicated to try to keep it in the main Revit file because it would make it really big and hard to use. So they've done it in a separate file and they link it into the main file. Your project won't be that big ever, so you don't need to worry about it. But the problem is I can't select the windows. If I try to select a window, it tries to grab other things other than the window. So whenever this happens in Revit and you're trying to grab something, but something else is in your way, or the cursor, Revit's not understanding what element you're trying to grab, you can always hover over what you want. And you can see right now, I'm trying to select the window, but it's selecting the floor. And you can tell because it's highlighted the floor in light blue. Also, a little pop-up comes up that tells me what I'm about to select. It says floor, finished floor, laminate, R1. So I'm not going to click because that's not what I want. I'm just going to hover over the window, and now it's trying to select a door. I don't want the door. So I'm just going to hover over what I do want, and I'm going to hit the tab button. And now it's going to keep, every time I hit the tab button, it's going to guess what I'm trying to select based on my mouse location. So now it's trying to select the linked file, but I don't want the linked file. So I'm going to hit tab again. And now it's guessing, hey, do you want to select the window? So now it's highlighted the window and now I click. Once I click, it'll fill in the window and with blue, and you can see that's what I have selected. So that's another thing you'll need to master because a lot of the times you're trying to click on something, but something else is in your way. And the way to get around that is to click the tab keyboard button. Let's see if we can do it again on something else. So yeah, maybe this gazebo okay, so this railing. If I click on it, it's clicking on the whole group of the railing, but if I tab, let me escape. If I tab, it will select a piece of the railing. And tab can be used for other things as well, and we'll talk about that as we get into modeling. But just know that that command is there for when you're selecting. All right, so let's talk about selecting multiple things. Sometimes you'll want to select more than one item. So let's try selecting all 4 of these windows. So what you can do is, you can see it's not grabbing the window, so I'm going to have to tab till it selects the window. Sometimes it's tricky, it's not guessing. Here we go. So there's one window. And now to add something to your selection, you're going to hold down the Control button. And do you see how when I hold down Control, my mouse, my arrow has a little plus next to it, and when I let go, the plus goes away. So Control will add stuff to your selection, and if you hit Shift, if you hold Shift, it has a negative sign. That'll subtract stuff. So let's try adding these windows. So first I need to tab till I have the window. Then before I click, I have to hit the Control button. And now my cursor shows a plus. Once I have the Control button pushed, I can click on my mouse. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to tab till I have the window. Then I'm going to hold down Control, and then I'm going to click. So do you see how 3 of them are selected? We're going to do that one more time. We're going to tab to the window, hold Control, and then click. So now all 4 windows are selected. Now if I want to get rid of one of the windows, I can go to that window, and I can hold down the Shift button, and you can see the negative sign, and now I click the window, and now it's no longer part of my selection. All right, another navigating item that you'll want to know is when you're orbiting, whatever you last selected will be the center of the orbit, which if you haven't navigated a lot in 3D, you might not know why this matters. But let me show you, for example. If I let me click something over here, like this building. So now when I orbit, that's the center of my orbit. The problem is if I forget that I selected that building and I'm trying to look at something over here, like this window, and I go to orbit, it flings that what I'm trying to look at, it just like moves it way out of the way because it's still centering the orbit on my last selection. So what I need to do is I need to select this building. So now it's the center. Well, that's not a good example because it's a whole linked file, but it'll recenter my orbit now around that. So let's try this window. Okay, so now that I've selected it, now it orbits and it keeps that centered around my orbit. This is something it's hard to explain to you, but you'll definitely know what I'm talking about when you go to do this for yourself. So I would take a minute and just feel what it feels like when you're orbiting and click on different things and see how it affects your orbit. Okay, let's see. We've talked about most of the key navigation elements. The other thing you might want to learn right out of the gate that's a shortcut is the redo and the undo command. So let's click on a window and delete it. So let's delete that window. Let's delete that window. So now there's no opening behind the window. And we're like, oops, we didn't want to do that. So Control Z is your best friend. So I'm going to hit Control Z twice and it undoes what I just did. You can also find the undo command up here at the top. It's this back arrow. And the redo command is the forward arrow. So if I was like, oh no, I did want to delete those. Let's delete them again. You can push the redo command and it will put you back before what you did for the undo command. Sorry, that's a little confusing. Okay. I think that's about it for the basics of navigation. Take a moment, get comfortable with that, and then in the next video, we're going to open up a brand new file, and then we're going to start modeling. And we're going to use all of the stuff we just learned in this video to help us model in 3D in the next video.